Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on the topic of Social Security Disability Benefits Overview, a Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services ITU training webinar. My name is Julie Cahoon, and I am from Kaufman & Associates, and I will be your moderator today. As a reminder, there are 2 upcoming webinars under this ITU webinar series. Please plan to join us for these next webinars on June 11th and June 25th. With those announcements made, I will now turn it over to Josh Weller to introduce today's topic.
Thank you, Julie. And good afternoon, good morning to everyone. My name is Josh Weller. I am a public affairs specialist with the Social Security Administration in Denver, Colorado. I'm very pleased to be with you today. Would like to present some information about disability benefits and the 2 different types of benefits that Social Security administers. Again, if you have questions, feel free to submit them in the Q&A box, and we will go through those questions at the end of the presentation. Before we get into specifics about both types of benefits Social Security administers, I do want to share some information about the economic impact Social Security has on the American public. And if you would, refer to the pie chart on the slide. This is economic data or data from our agency back in 2019, so it's the most recent data we have to share. But again, it's an overview of the economic impact Social Security has on the American public. So on the pie chart that you see represented, back in 2019, there were 63 million individuals who received a form of monthly Social Security benefits. And the total sum in which the agency paid out was $940 billion. So again, a significant impact on the American public economically. The pie chart is going to illustrate where those funds went or were distributed. So about 2/3 of the funds we distribute, that red section of the pie, 42.5 million individuals were Social Security retirees, receiving a monthly retirement benefit based upon the amount they paid in through employment, received back out through retirement. And then 3 million of their dependents, that could be a spouse, divorced spouse, or a minor child of the retiree. A smaller but almost equal portion of 1/3 of that pie is going to be the lime green section. That's for disability. So 8.7 million individuals were receiving Social Security disability, and 1.7 million of their dependents, again, either spouse, divorced spouse, or minor children or child, were receiving Social Security monthly benefits. And finally, a little bit lesser sum, but the yellow piece of that economic pie, 6 million individuals who are receiving survivor benefits. These are spouses or ex-spouses of the deceased who are receiving Social Security retirement benefits, and 2 million surviving children. So children under the age of 18 of, again, either deceased parent. So now that we understand the monetary impact or effect Social Security has, again, on the American public economically, let's look at the individual criteria and the overview of the 2 programs we administer. I mentioned before that Social Security administers 2 different types of disability programs. There is Social Security disability, and there's supplemental security income. And both of these programs are eligible to individuals who have the disabling conditions or are limited in their ability to continue employment based upon these conditions, and they're going to draw a monthly benefit from our agency, Social Security. Now, even though our agency administers both programs, they are different regarding how much we pay, the eligibility criteria, and we're going to look at that in the next slide, kind of comparing and contrasting how both programs are the same and how there's some differences between the 2. So you're going to see abbreviations occasionally in the presentation. So for reference, SSDI is going to stand for Social Security Disability Insurance, and Supplemental Security Income is what's represented as SSI. So let's look at both programs and see, again, how they're the same and how they're different in some ways. So we'll start on the left-hand side of the slide for Social Security Disability Insurance. Individuals who qualify for that program are going to be drawing their benefits out of what they paid in through employment. So individuals who have worked, had FICA tax collected from their employment, anticipating drawing Social Security retirement. Heaven forbid they become disabled or develop disabling conditions. They then would draw their benefits out before retirement age eligibility in the form of a Social Security Disability Insurance payment. While supplemental security income has nothing to do with whether you've paid into Social Security or not, it is not paid out of the Social Security Trust Fund, it's paid out of the General Treasury. So individuals who are eligible or have the ability to draw from supplemental security income, they need not have ever contributed into Social Security through employment or frankly even worked. It's based upon your disabling conditions, and we're going to look at that in subsequent slides. Going back to Social Security Disability Insurance, it is in essence an insurance at which as you're working, you're having that Social Security FICA tax collected, you become insured. And the more you work and pay in, the greater your benefit rate will be. While supplemental security income, it's solely based on limited income and limited resources. Again, to reiterate, it does not matter how much you paid into Social Security Disability or if ever, but for supplemental security income and for those that are applying for that benefit, it's solely based upon your limited income and limited resources. For Social Security Disability Insurance, we pay the benefits, again, in proportion to what you paid in. While on supplemental security income, we have a set monthly amount. That's a federal amount, and we'll discuss what that amount is in subsequent slides, but it does not exceed a certain threshold. Finally, for Social Security Disability Insurance recipients, we pay the individual who's contributed through employment that disability payment, as well as eligible spouses or ex-spouses or minor children of the disabled individual. While for supplemental security income, we pay solely the individual who's receiving that supplemental security income based upon limited income, limited resources in their disabling conditions. And children may be eligible based upon their own disabling conditions, based upon their household limited income and resources for supplemental security income. And again, we'll look at that at subsequent slides. A question we get very frequently, either by phone or in person in local offices, is when should I file for disability benefits? And we would encourage you to apply as soon as you become disabled or develop a disabling condition in which it limits or prohibits your ability to continue employment. And once we've worked with you in obtaining the necessary information, the documentation, the application to submit the Social Security Disability Insurance or Supplemental Security Income application, we transfer that application, and it generally takes between 3 to 5 months to obtain a medical decision. So from submission to obtaining a decision back, it takes about 3 to 5 months. What may vary the duration of how long it takes to obtain the decision is based upon medical documentation that's either provided by the applicant at the time they file, or when our agency, through a medical release consent form, contacts supplied medical professional who had worked with the applicant, who's aware of their disabling condition, who has access to their medical information, and we would contact that entity and obtain their medical sources on their behalf. So individuals who apply that have more medical information available, it tends to lead to a lesser duration of waiting for that decision. And when there is less medical information provided or there's more time spent by the agency in obtaining that information, then it may lead to a longer duration of that wait to receive a decision. So let's look at the rules for an adult who's wishing to apply for supplemental security income or Social Security disability insurance. The criteria we use is two-pronged, meaning the applicant must have a physical and/or mental impairment, and their condition or conditions, could be singular or plural, prohibits or limits their ability to work and earn up to a substantial gainful amount. And the substantial gainful amount threshold in 2020 is $1,260 per month earned income through employment. The threshold for individuals alleging visual impairment is a little bit higher, and in 2020, that threshold is $2,110 per month earned income through employment. As well as your disabling condition or conditions must be expected to last 12 months or longer, or may result in your death. So this is long-term disabling conditions opposed to something that's short-term that may be resolved within 12 months. We do consider age, education, and past work activity of the applicant in determining how severe their conditions are, again, affecting their ability to obtain employment or perform their current employment. For individuals applying for Social Security disability insurance, there is an element of recent work requirement, meaning when an individual attempts to file for their Social Security disability insurance, that individual needs to have a minimum of 20 credits. And a credit is earned through earned income through employment, having FICA tax withheld from that employment. And as a reference, in 2020, one credit is worth $1,410, meaning if I'm acquiring credits for the purposes of retirement or being insured for Social Security disability insurance, if I'm employed and I gross as little as $1,410 in 2020, I have FICA tax withheld from that low threshold of $1,410, then I acquire one credit towards the 20 I need to be eligible or insured for my Social Security retirement or disability insurance. To break that down further or simplified, it's generally, have you worked as the applicant 5 out of the last 10 years? So if I've worked 5 out of the last 10 years, I'm still vested or insured for the program. For workers who are under the age of 31 when they apply for Social Security disability insurance, there's less work required. So you may not need to have worked 5 out of the last 10. And unlike retirement benefits, you can lose the eligibility for disability coverage if you stop working for a period of time. And that goes back to the criteria of, have you worked 5 out of the last 10 years? So for those who are struggling with their disabling condition and maintaining employment, or they're in and out of the workforce, or their hours or wage has been reduced because they're part-time, and once you've met the monetary requirement of, are you grossing less than $1,260 per month, then we would encourage you to file as soon as possible. Because again, we're looking at that time frame, have you worked 5 out of the last 10 years? Once an individual has become eligible and receives their Social Security disability insurance, we have benefits payable to their family off of their record that does not affect how much we pay the individual who's receiving the Social Security disability insurance. So if the disabled individual has a spouse or an ex-spouse whose minimum age of 62, they can receive up to half of the disabled individual's monthly Social Security benefits, again, without affecting how much we pay the disabled individual. In the event that the spouse is caring for a minor child of the disabled who's under the age of 16, or that child is disabled themselves, then we can pay benefits to that spouse regardless of age. And for spouses who are divorced, they were married 10 years or longer, then we're able to pay half of your divorced spouse's benefits to you, again, in the form of a spousal payment from the individual who's receiving Social Security disability insurance. Children who are under the age of 18, still full-time attendance in school, who are unmarried, so minors or heirs of the individual receiving Social Security disability insurance, your child or children can also receive half of your disability benefit per month until they've aged out of that program. And again, it does not affect how much we pay the Social Security disability insurance recipient. So that's a general overview of Social Security disability insurance. Let's transition and look further into the second disability program that Social Security administers, and that's SSI, or Supplemental Security Income. I mentioned before that Supplemental Security Income has a set national rate, and for an individual, that set national rate is $783 per month in 2020. And for couples, so two individuals who are receiving Supplemental Security Income, they are eligible to receive a total of $1,175 per month. Again, these are set thresholds nationally. There is no adjustment for proximity pay. We do have cost of living that's granted every year by the Labor Department. So these figures may go up from year to year, and that's why I'm stressing these are the 2020 figures between January through December of this year. For individuals who are interested in applying for Supplemental Security Income as an adult, we look at beyond, do you have disabling conditions that are expected to last 12 months or longer, and beyond, does your condition or conditions limit your ability to work and earn up to that $1,260 per month. There's an added element of, do you have limited income or limited resources? So the resource limits that our agency looks at is for an individual applicant is going to be $2,000. And a resource is anything you can turn into cash. For couples, it's $3,000 is the resource limit. And what we count in that resource limit, again, is anything you can turn into cash, liquid assets. So we look at the value of bank accounts, including CDs, IRAs. We're looking at more than your primary automobile. So if you have your primary automobile, if you have a second vehicle, we're going to count the value of that second vehicle towards the resource limit. If you own stocks or bonds, have a 401k balance, that's going to be counted towards that $2,000 resource limit. Any liquid assets, again, anything you can sell or turn into cash. And finally, property except where you live. So other than your residence, if you have rental property or your name's on another form of real estate, that may be counted towards that $2,000 resource limit. Things that we do not count towards your resource limit as a Supplemental Security Income applicant would be the home at which you live, your primary automobile, any burial plots, and certain resources set aside for personal burial expenses. So we still collect this information during the application process, and we exclude the value of it towards that $2,000 resource limit. Supplemental Security Income, we look at, I mentioned income and resources. So when we mention the term income, it's referring to earned income through employment, so that's wages, or if you're self-employed. We look at unearned income, so that's all income that's not earned. We look at in-kind income, so that's the value of food and or shelter. So example of that would be if someone is providing an individual who's applying for Supplemental Security Income with food or helping to pay for their living expenses, we count the value of that contribution as income. And it goes towards that $2,000 income and resource limit, as well as deemed income. So if you are living with a spouse or living with a parent and they have sources of income, that in some circumstances that may be counted as your income as well, especially if you have a name on a bank account and this other individual is contributing funds into the same bank account because your name is on it, you have access to it. We're deeming their income to your resource and income limits for SSI purposes. We do offer supplemental security income benefits to children as well as adults. However, for children, the criteria is a little different. For supplemental security income, we do pay benefits to disabled children under the age of 18 who are unmarried and living in a household with limited income and resources. So many children under the age of 18, they're not working, they don't own a lot of assets. So for eligibility purposes, we count the income and assets of a parent or parents in the household living with them, and we deem their resources to that minor child to see if they're in fact eligible for SSI. Again, looking further into the requirements for a minor child to be eligible for supplemental security income, same criteria as an adult, other than age, in the sense that the child is under the age of 18, they have a physical or mental impairment, could be a combination of both. But in the child's circumstances, the disabling condition has a marked or severe limitation in functioning. We're not going to evaluate a minor child with can they work, or is there a field of employment that they can conduct. That's an adult standard for SSI. For SSI, for a minor child, we're looking at the limitations as far as functioning as a child's normal development. We're looking at educational limitations in school that's documented at school. The child must be either blind or disabled. Again, we talked about there are some differences depending on the disabling condition. Again, as an adult, for earned income through employment, we're not looking at that for a child. So we're solely looking at, again, their limitations in functioning. And the same criteria, those limitations in functioning, their disabling conditions, is it expected to last 12 months or longer or result in their death? And if that's the case, then we would encourage either the custodial guardian, parent of the child to submit an application so that child may have a supplemental security income disability decision made. We still look at, for a minor child, their resource and income limits. And I mentioned before, we're deeming them from whom they live with, or a parent they live with, or parents they live with, to that minor child. However, the resource and income limits are different than an adult. So for a child applying for supplemental security income, the resource limits are varying. So a child living with one parent in the household, the resource limits are $4,000 per month. When both parents are living in the household, it's $5,000 per month. And when that child is living with an individual other than their biological parent, it's $2,000 per month. Items that we count towards the value of resources, same as an adult criteria. We're looking at bank accounts. We're looking at more than one primary automobile. We're looking at stocks and bonds, 401ks, liquid assets, as well as property other than which that child is living, residing. Items we do not count towards children's eligibility for supplemental security income, same as an adult. We do not count or we exclude the home at which the child lives, the primary automobile which the parent uses for the care of that child, any burial plots for that child, or certain resources set aside for personal burial expenses for that child. When a minor child under the age of 18 is approved for supplemental security income, they continue receiving that benefit until they turn age 18. And for Social Security purposes, age 18 is now considered an adult. So what occurs is a minor child who is approved on a different set of criteria as a child is now aged to an adult. And that causes the Social Security Administration to reach out to that individual, and we begin processing a new disability determination based upon adult rules. We stop counting the income and resources from parents. So we look at them as an individual. We may adjust the SSI rate if that adult child either continues to live with the parent or if they move out on their own. So we can pay up to the national rate for SSI is $783, and we can pay a lesser sum depending on the income and resources available to that now adult child. For individuals who are nearing attainment of age 18 and they were approved and receiving benefits through supplemental security income as a child, they can submit an application as early as their 18th birthday and begin that process. Otherwise, Social Security will mail a letter to the individual prompting them to contact us to begin that application process. When an individual is approved, either caring for a child who's on SSI or as an adult who's approved for SSI, supplemental security income, there's something called reporting responsibilities. And this is something that we go over with the beneficiary once they're approved, ensuring that they're aware of any changes that occur. They need to be presented to Social Security or their local Social Security office. For supplemental security income, it's a monthly base payment, meaning from 1 month, if I'm eligible for the maximum $783, if circumstances were to change, it may reduce my benefit. Or if I'm originally approved for a lesser sum based upon my circumstances than the $783 amount, if my circumstances were to change, then I may be receiving an increase in benefit based upon those changes up to the $783 per month amount. On the slide is listed many of the reporting responsibilities. I won't read all of them, but many of them, the common changes that we as an agency need to be made aware of once someone is on supplemental security income is when that individual were to change addresses, if they change their living arrangement, meaning were you living by yourself and now you're cohabitating with someone else, or when you were originally approved, were you cohabitating with someone and now you're living by yourself? There's changes in earned income through employment. If you're currently employed, if your employment status changes, there's changes in resources. You may have to liquidate resources available to you, which may draw your income and resource limits above or below that $2,000. So again, we go over this with the individuals who are approved for SSI, and any changes that occur, we ask the public to contact their local office or call us by phone and let us know these changes so we can pay that supplemental security beneficiary appropriately. For an individual filing for either Social Security disability insurance or supplemental security income, if you disagree with the initial determination. So let's go through the application process that you can expect when you file for benefits before we get into how to appeal that initial denial. When you are interested in filing for either Social Security disability or supplemental security income, you can contact Social Security either by calling us, and I'll provide a phone number in a few slides, or you can file online at socialsecurity.gov. And once an initial application has been taken, we take that application, we obtain a medical release consent form, and we send that application to the Disability Determination Service for the state in which you reside. In the Disability Determination Service, they pull your medical information that's provided within your application. They review your medical information, and they determine, based upon the medical information provided, are your condition or conditions meeting the criteria for either receiving Social Security disability insurance or supplemental security income. And once a decision has been made, we mail you a letter. So if it's an approval, we send you a letter. And for individuals filing for Social Security disability insurance, there's no further action needed. We send a letter and saying you're approved. Here's when your benefits are expected to begin payment. Here's your benefit rate. And that's just kept for a personal record. For individuals who are approved for supplemental security income, there is a second contact that's made by either a local office or done through our 800 number, in which we reach out to the applicant. We inform them they are approved for supplemental security income. And because it's been between 3 and 5 months since we last engaged with that individual at the initial application date, we review the income and resource section of the application, ensuring that nothing significantly has changed. And from that information collected after approval, we determine the benefit rate. Can we pay the maximum we can pay to an SSI individual, that's $783 per month, or is there warranted a lesser sum based upon their income and resources? But let's say, regardless of the type of benefit you apply for, if you disagree with that decision that's mailed to you, or your decision is come by mail and it's a denial, you can appeal that decision to a reconsideration, and you have 60 days to do so from the date of the decision on the notice. Ways to appeal that decision to a reconsideration is, again, you can either go through our website, socialsecurity.gov, and submit that appeal, or you can contact a local office by phone, and we can conduct that appeal by phone. You can certainly go into a local office, but at the moment, nationally, Social Security offices are closed for in-person contact due to the coronavirus. After you go through the reconsideration process, if you're approved, we pay you benefits back to your initial application date. If you're denied or you still disagree with that reconsideration level appeal, then you can submit an additional appeal to a hearing. And again, that's contacting Social Security by phone. We work with you in processing the documentation, and we submit that for a decision, or you can submit a hearing through our website, socialsecurity.gov. For individuals who are approved for Social Security disability insurance, we do have what are called work incentives. So if the disabled individual has interest in re-engaging in the workforce, or seeing if they can re-enter the workforce after their disabling condition has occurred, we have 2 different programs available. One is called the trial work period, and for individuals who are on Social Security disability insurance, when that individual begins employment or attempting to work through employment, they have 9 months that are not necessarily consecutive in a rolling 60-month period, in which if that individual grosses more than $910 through employment that month, then it's counted as one of their 9 trial work periods. If they attempt to go back to work in that 60-month period and they gross less than $910 through employment, it is not counted towards one of the 9 trial work period months. So in the event that someone does go back to work or is self-employed and goes back to employment, they're grossing more than $910 per month. This is the gross amount. Over 9 months, the benefits remain payable. After the 9th month of earning more than $910 through employment, they then enter what's called the extended period of eligibility. This is a new work incentive in which it's a consecutive 36-month period following the 9th month of the trial work period attainment. In those 36 months, while the Social Security disability recipient is attempting to go back to work or engaging in employment, if they gross more per month than the substantial gainful amount, the SGA level in 2020 of $1,260, that following month is not payable to them. They're not eligible. If the following month they then earn less than $1,260, then their benefits are reinstated and they are payable that month. So we have a 36-month, 3-year period at which if they gross more than $1,260, they're not payable that month. If it's less or under $1,260, they are able to re-engage in employment, to rejoin the workforce in some capacity, or see if they are physically or mentally able to, while preserving their eligibility to Social Security disability insurance. For supplemental security income, there is work incentives as well. So individuals who are on supplemental security income, they're concerned with keeping their resources and income under the $2,000 threshold, making them eligible for the benefit. Any earned income through employment, we waive the first $65. In the remaining amount, we only apply half towards what's considered their resource limit. We also have the ability to waive any expenses that are incurred by individuals who have income-related work expenses. So depending on the SSI recipient's disabling conditions, if they need assistance in commuting to their place of employment, if they need the use of a wheelchair, a back brace, a cane, assisted devices if they're on medications that are required based upon their disabling condition that are needed for them to seek employment, we're able to waive the expense of those income-related work expenses from their earned income through employment. As well as for individuals who are students, there is a student earned income exclusion, and that threshold is $1,870 per month, at which we're able to exclude the earned income from employment. And there's a maximum of $7,550 per year. I do want to mention that the Social Security Administration at a national level is aware that many either Social Security recipients or even those who are not yet on a Social Security benefit may be receiving fraud or scam calls. And these scam calls may be from individuals who are posing as Social Security representatives. They may call and threaten an individual that if they do not provide their personal identifiable information, their Social Security number by phone, that they may either terminate or stop their Social Security benefits. They may attempt to financially incentivize the release of personal information, stating that they can increase your benefit rate if you were to send them a certain set of money per month or read a gift card, by phone to them. Just want to make you aware that this is happening, and you may have received the call as well, that if someone does call and you're uncomfortable with the phone call, or you're not anticipating a phone call, that you would not engage with these individuals. The best thing to do is to let phone numbers that you're unfamiliar with go to voicemail. If a local office or Social Security is calling you, then we will leave our name, our phone number, and extension, and when you call us back, it'll go through a local office's Social Security federal phone tree identifying the phone number. And do be aware, again, that Social Security does not threaten you. We cannot financially incentivize you to provide the information. We very rarely contact you by phone. We prefer to send notices by mail prompting you, the applicant or the beneficiary, to contact our agency. The instances in which you may receive a phone call from our agency is if you have a pending Social Security application for benefits. And if there's a reason that we need to contact you to clarify some information so we can submit that application, we may call you. And in the instance that we're not able to reach you or you're not willing to discuss your information by phone, we'll mail you a notice and you can contact our agency. But I wanted to make you aware that that is occurring. Our agency is aware of these fraud and scam calls. There is a website which you can report that information. If you go to our website, socialsecurity.gov, there's a banner which you can report fraud calls to the Office of the Inspector General. And for further information about protecting your identity, there's identitytheft.gov. There are 3 ways in which you can interact with Social Security to either file or inquire about both benefits we discussed today, supplemental security income and the Social Security disability insurance. First option would be on our website, socialsecurity.gov. You can apply for both programs on our website. So if you have computer access, whether at home or in a public space, if you're an average typist, you're comfortable navigating the internet, then that is a great resource for you, both to obtain additional information about Social Security benefits, specifically Social Security disability insurance and supplemental security income, as well as applying for those benefits online. A second option would be you can contact us by phone. The phone number to our national call centers is 1-800-772-1213. And that phone number goes to a regional call center. It is staffed by Social Security employees. And we can both answer general questions about Social Security benefits that you're interested in applying for, as well as scheduling an appointment with a local office. And I mentioned before that presently Social Security is not open to the public due to the COVID-19, the coronavirus, and social distancing guidelines. So a way to still interact with our agency in person would be to schedule a phone appointment if you're interested in filing for Social Security disability or supplemental security income. And when you call our 800 number, you'll provide your personal information. We'll access the closest office to the applicant's location, and we'll agree upon a designated date and time at which we can contact the applicant, we can obtain the necessary information, and we can assist you in submitting that application for disability. The third option is going to be you could visit a local office. Again, that's not possible at the moment, but when circumstances were to change and we do reopen for in-person contact, that is a way that you can also conduct business with your local Social Security office. Final slide is a screenshot of our website, socialsecurity.gov. For more information regarding both benefits we discussed today, Social Security disability insurance and supplemental security income, I would encourage you to visit our website, again, socialsecurity.gov. We have additional information about how to apply for both benefits, eligibility criteria. We have further information about other benefits that we administer. We have retirement benefits. I mentioned spousal, divorce spousal benefits, survivor benefits. The attainment of Medicare at age 65, Medicare Part A and B enrollment is through the Social Security Administration. So we have a lot of great information available and great resources for individuals who would like more information about how to apply and whether they feel they're eligible. I do want to point out that one great resource on our website is our My Social Security account. So if you look at the bottom left portion of our web page, there's a hand clicking a blue button in a brown circle. The My Social Security account is where individuals gain access to their earnings statement. And we used to mail the Social Security earnings statement to everyone who's under the age of 60. We've since discontinued that practice. So individuals who would like to review their earnings history through Social Security, determine, am I still eligible for Social Security disability insurance, Have I worked and paid into Social Security 5 out of the last 10 years? You can see that information when you open and access your My Social Security account. You can do so on our website. Once you've gained access to your My Social Security account, we do give an estimate of what your future Social Security retirement benefits will be, as well as a projection of what your Social Security disability insurance benefit may be per month, again, if you're approved for that benefit. And that concludes my presentation. Julie, do we have any questions?
Great. Thank you, Josh. So now is the time for our question and answer portion of the webinar. You may enter your questions in the Q&A pod located at the bottom right side of your screen. If you are on the phone line, we will pause after a few moments taking questions through Adobe Connect to offer a time for those on the phone to ask a question over the phone. So we'll go ahead and look to our questions, and we'll take the first one. So our first question is, can someone be eligible for and or receive both SSDI and SSI?
Yes. So individuals who file for the really both Social Security disability and supplemental security income, we always take both applications. We may make a determination that someone is ineligible for SSI or SSDI, and one may be submitted for a medical decision. But generally speaking, we do have individuals apply for both. We make the determination whether they're eligible for payment for both, and there are individuals who are approved for both programs. And in that instance, you would receive your Social Security disability insurance amount. And if that amount is less than the SSI maximum of $783, you would receive your SSDI portion, and the difference between that portion and $783 would be supplemented as the SSI payment. If your Social Security disability benefits are significantly greater per month than the SSI maximum threshold of $783, then you would not be payable for SSI. You would solely be payable through Social Security disability insurance.
Okay, great. Our next question is, will an individual lose eligibility for SSDI coverage if they stop paying into the program due to loss of income or inability to work? If it's a lifelong disability, would they then possibly qualify for SSI?
Yes. So if an individual is approved for SSDI, then they've worked 5 out of the last 10 years. In an instance that you have an individual who's working, paying into Social Security disability, for some reason they're not approved within the first 5 out of the last 10 years that they stopped working, then at that point, they would no longer be eligible for Social Security disability insurance. We would then have them apply for supplemental security income. Again, to reiterate, regardless of what benefit individual approaches Social Security to file for, we're having them apply for both. And we make a decision at that time whether they're eligible for both or we're going to pursue one over the other.
Okay. The next question is, can someone still be eligible for disability if their spouse is working, and are they still eligible to apply for spousal benefits?
Yes. So for Social Security disability insurance, it's an individual benefit, meaning if I'm engaged in a marital relationship, regardless of what my spouse has as far as resources and income, are they currently employed, we're looking at an individual contribution. So myself as the individual contributing into Social Security FICA tax through employment, if heaven forbid I develop a disabling condition or conditions, I can apply for Social Security disability insurance, and I'm going to receive that on the merits of my own contribution, determining my benefit rate, as well as how does my own disabling conditions affect my ability to work and earn up to that threshold as a substantial gainful amount at $1,260 per month. For SSI purposes, if we're a couple, we're living in the same household, that may affect my eligibility for SSI if I'm not paying my fair share. So an individual who's applying for SSI who's over the age of 18, regardless if you live with another individual or not, we're not deeming your spouse's income to your SSI application. But since I'm living in the same household, and if it's my spouse and I as an SSI applicant, for me to receive that maximum benefit per month of $783, I need to be contributing my fair share. Meaning, if we have rent, am I contributing half of the income towards rent? If there's utilities, food expenses, expenses for shelter, transportation. And in the event that I'm not contributing for my SSI benefit, half of the resources in the household, then we may reduce the SSI benefits payable to that individual to a lesser sum than that $783 because of the spouses supplementing their living expenses through rent, food, shelter as a resource. So it's a very individualized circumstance, one that when an individual is approved for SSI, we review that with them to determine an accurate monthly benefit rate.
Great, thank you. Our next question is, if an applicant with limited income and resources has previously been denied SSDI, will their application be automatically reviewed for SSI, or will they have to reapply separately?
So again, under the circumstances that individuals already filed, I'm going to assume that Social Security took both applications at the same time. And if an individual was denied for Social Security disability insurance, chances are they were also denied for supplemental security income. For an individual to refile, and if they're interested in applying for SSI or they believe they're eligible for SSI at that point, it would be a new application. And it's a new application because we're going to collect updated or new medical information on that application. We'll review their new income and resources that are present at the time they file, and we'll submit that application for a new medical decision. So an individual would need to recontact Social Security and refile for that benefit.
Okay, our next question is, are SSI resource limits the same for all states?
Yes. So SSI resource and income limits are the same across all states. We do not have locality pay that's built into that. So the maximum we can pay regardless of where you live is going to be $783. The maximum that we can attribute towards the threshold of resources and income for an individual is $2,000. That may be a greater sum in areas that have lower cost of living, and that's a lesser sum in areas that have a higher cost of living. But yes, it is the same across the nation, all states. They're applied to federal benefits, meaning they're applicable to all states, and that threshold is the same.
Okay, thank you. So we will go ahead and pause here with the Adobe Connect questions and see if there are folks on the phone who would like to ask a question over the phone line. Operator, would you mind providing instructions to participants on how to ask a question over the phone?
Yes, ma'am. And at this time, I would like to remind everyone that in order to ask a question, simply press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad. And we'll pause for just a moment to compile the Q&A roster. And you do have a question. Caller, please state your name.
Christy.
And your line is open for your question.
If I'm an adult with disabilities still receiving child support under a divorce agreement, that as long as I'm disabled, that I will continue to receive child support. Does that make me ineligible for SSI or SSDI? In other words, does it count toward my income?
Yes. Thank you, Christy, for the question. The Social Security Disability Insurance application would not be affected by the presence of child support because the individual's only eligibility requirement is your conditions lasting 12 months or longer and the earned income through employment threshold of $1,260 per month, that substantial gainful amount. So resources are not counted against an individual who's applying for the SSDI. However, for SSI and SSI applicants or those who are receiving the benefit of SSI, receiving that child support per month may affect whether we can continue paying the maximum of $783 for that SSI. And it's something that we would address with the individual on a case-by-case basis.
And it looks like you have no further questions on the phone at this time.
Okay, we'll take another question from the phone if there is one.
And you have no further questions.
Okay, I would like to note that we are moving a little bit past the top of the hour. We have a few questions remaining in the queue, and we'd like to go ahead and address those while we have you all on the call live. So we'll go ahead and move on to our next question. The next question is, how are tribal resources or payments included or calculated as part of the individual's income source?
Yes, so for the SSI application, we will ask the applicant to share any sources of tribal income or resources made available to them. However, depending on the source and the type of that income received, it's going to be something that a local office would apply per a policy. And there may be circumstances where we're waiving that source of income and not counting it towards the income and resources of $2,000 per month. Again, it's a very individualized situation, one that I would not deter anyone who's receiving those sources of income from filing for SSI. Please do so, and we'll work with you to see how our policies apply to that individual income source.
Great, thank you. So the next question is, many Alaska Natives and American Indians who receive SSI also receive quarterly Native dividends that exceed resource limitations. Is there a process in place for the individual AIAN to avoid indebtedness to the U.S. government for overpayment?
Yeah, and that's a great question, one that our agency is aware of, and it's something we deal with at our regional level. Again, it depends on our specific policy to that source of income. That's where I think reaching out to your local Social Security office, asking for that policy or clarification on that policy, and see if they can recommend something that will assist with individuals who are incurring those overpayments, that if there's a way per our policy to work around that issue, but it's not one that's going to be dealt with at a national level. It'll be a policy that's applied to that specific circumstance.
Okay. And the next question is, how will COVID-19 restrictions impact people who had a teleconference or those who couldn't appeal due to public closures?
Yes, and as I mentioned before, local offices across the country are closed to in-person contact, and as of right now, we don't have an exact date of when in-person services will resume. However, individuals still have the same services available to them. It either will be through our website, socialsecurity.gov, or it'll be through a phone appointment. And call our 800 number. We'll schedule that appointment for you. We'll have a local office contact you. In the instance that we need verification, meaning documentation of some kind, we allow individuals to fax that documentation to us, or you can mail it to a local office, and we'll record those proofs or documents, and we'll mail the information back to you. We are eager to get back to full services, but under the circumstances, we're doing everything we can to maintain the same level of service, but it's just going to be a different capacity, meaning through a phone appointment or interacting through the phone.
Great. Thank you. And along those same lines, is the SSA call center still running from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Central Standard Time?
It is, and it's 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. depending on your time zone. So depending on your time zone, it's going to be for you 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And again, they are Social Security representatives who can provide you with answers to your questions as well as scheduling appointments for a local office.
Okay, and here is our final question before we wrap up for today. What are the fraud scam report resources also useful for clients who receive calls saying there is a warrant for their arrest and who are given a warrant number?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, as an agency, we're aware these calls are going out. I myself, and I'm a federal employee, I work for the agency, have received these same calls. There isn't necessarily a way to follow up with these frauds other than through our website. You can reach out to the Office of Inspector General, provide as much information as possible, meaning the phone number that you were contacted on, the nature of the call. You can submit that, and we do use that information to pursue prosecutions when we can locate these individuals. But my best advice would be, even when a warrant number is shared, if you can obtain, and you've engaged with this individual by calling them, if you can obtain either their phone number, if you can obtain their name and callback information, and if it's someone that's pretending to be a Social Security representative, you can hang up and call our 800 number and ask an individual to verify if that individual is employed by Social Security. If it's someone other than a Social Security representative who they're impersonating, just do your best not to share personal information, and it would be to report that fraud call through our website to the Office of Inspector General. That way we're aware that they're occurring. It changes some of the verbiage we use to inform the public, as well as we do pursue prosecutions when the individuals responsible for the calls are located.
Great. Thank you so much, Josh. And that will now conclude our question and answer session. Before we close, I'd like to remind everyone that there are upcoming webinars under the CMS ITU training webinar series. Please join us on June 11th and again on June 25th. Thank you all for joining today's webinar. Our session is now concluded. Have a great rest of your day.